This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Jacob Phillips. Jake is on a mission to make a difference by building brands that connect humans to the services they need and businesses to the humans they exist for. Quite a mouthful. Jake, hello, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, Jay. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. You're CEO and brand design strategist at Touchpoint. Tell me a little bit about Touchpoint.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what you said a little bit. We do a lot with humans. Touchpoint is a design agency, though, where we focus on helping rebrand small businesses and nonprofits. And really, at the end of the day, it's connecting humans, with the services that they need for. So it's at the core of, being able to connect these dots and utilize the brand image in a way that helps tell your story and connect with your ideal audience.
Love it. Well, let's take it back a little bit. Where did you grow up, and did that, experience growing up have anything to do with you being an entrepreneur today?
Oh man. Yeah. I'll take you back, but I think every entrepreneur in a way, their whole life is compounding on all of their experiences, and they get to this point and it's a combination of all the things. So in my situation, it's very similar to that. I had two parents that were also entrepreneurs, own their own businesses. I'm in Philadelphia at the moment, but I grew up in Delaware County, which is a little bit outside of Philadelphia, and two little places. So maybe some people have heard of it, but it's Alden. That's where I kind of grew up. And yeah, my parents, they had a few businesses. One was in general contracting, and they've been doing it, their whole life. And it's now trying to turn in more of a side business where they've always got the skill sets. They can always pull out some jobs when they need to. But the other was a sweet chocolate factory. It was called Sweet Dreams.
Wow.
And I feel like I think they had about 7 or 8 years where they had it. And it was in my life when I was about 9, maybe about like 8 to 16, I remember going in there and just eating all the candy.
Oh,
so that's how I remember
what
as a childhood.
Great time. Yeah, that's like the perfect candy time.
Yeah, man, I remember I'd be on rollerblades and I would just be skating around the back of the store. They'd be making candy. So I had a dream growing up, with all that, and it was interesting. So I didn't know it at the time, but that's the kind of the environment that I grew up in, was entrepreneurs and just people that were, taking their passions and fueling it into some kind of business that it's what they love to do. And then over the years, things have kind of evolved. And I think at the core, everything has always been business focused. And so I can tell you a little bit about how the journey went, and we could talk about colleges and all that thing. But I want to give you that base because my parents those are kind of the seeds of how my thought process and how my foundation was built. Because I think it takes a certain type of person to be an entrepreneur. I don't know if it's something like I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what an entrepreneur meant. I always thought it was a salesy car guy. And in my head growing up, I went, I don't want to do that. It was so business focused. And kind of growing up, my life had always been more immersed with connecting with people. I grew up doing creativity and design. And so it was never about turning it into a business. In my brain, it was always something that stemmed from loose imagination and just storytelling. And I hit this crossroads, and we could date into college, but I hit a crossroads where I went, I think this should be a business.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And so you went down to Savannah for college, I think I saw.
Yep. Savannah College of Art and Design down in Savannah, Georgia, right on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful place.
Incredible place.
Yeah, that college, one of the best colleges. I mean, they have their top tiers in terms of architecture and industrial design and interior design. All these things are very good, but at the end of the day, it's the atmosphere that you're in. And so their environment, their buildings are all immersed into the city and the atmosphere of Savannah. And Savannah, I don't know if you've been there, or Charleston maybe.
Yep.
It's the Spanish moss and the oak hanging over the trees. It just like everything is a wonderland. Great environment to get your imagination flowing. So that was SCAD, and call it SCAD, but industrial design was my focus there. And what I 4-year degree graduated from Savannah.
What's industrial versus regular design? Is it just is what it says? It's for commercial kind of use. Is that what industrial design means?
You know, it's changed a lot because technology is changing so much. So if you think of pure industrial design, you can think of like a toy designer, where
Mm-hmm.
industrial design is the broad umbrella where it's making consumer products.
Right.
So under that, you've got phones, you've got cars, you've got toys. But a toy is almost one of the purest forms because there's no screens in technology. So if you're making something, it's functional, it's for a human, it's for, so I would say that's the term. And then now that we've got screens and all the devices, you're starting to see the terminology to user experience and product design. Now there's product designs where they design digital screens and a lot of the graphics. And then there's product designs that are also industrial designers. So I think they're having an identity crisis in the industry. But at my time, it was industrial design, which at that time, it was all consumer products. It was all 3D design of an object and understanding the complexities of how it fits into the market and consumers and how it ends up in your hands at the end of the day as a consumer.
Very interesting. All right. Well, walk me from that. I mean, how did you go from that to, you said you had your aha moment, but what kind of experiences along the way led you to that aha moment?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, in my head, I know that aha moment, and it's all internal. A lot of these things are internal as you're going through your journey. I think on the surface though, like externally, I was just looking to get a job out of college, right? Looking to just figure out how I would fit into society, it wasn't even that I fit in the mold. It was that I wanted to, I got this great degree. I've got these awesome hard skills, some thinking skills. Let me go use them. Like, who needs these services? So I was in a mindset where I was, trying to pursue a career within industrial design. And I think in college, the more narrowed in and focused you are, you have an idea where it's like, that's how I'm going to get a job. Like if I'm industrial designer and I'm an interior designer. Oh wait, I'm also an architect. All the things get blurred. So you had to really get dialed in and focused. So that way, when you were interviewing or you were at a job, you were hired for that skill. So there was a mindset that started to be instilled where I had to get very niched in on who I was and what I had to do and how I got the job and how I'm valuable in this world. So out of college, I ended up getting an internship, local product firm, Bressler Group, right in Philadelphia as well. And in that experience, I learned so much about what that world of industrial design really was. And, I learned incredible things, but I think part of it internally, there was something that wasn't registering, that there was like some kind of tension and resistance to the industry. I didn't know what it was. So from there, that mini internship kind of inspired me. I ended up having an opportunity so my journey is all these diverse opportunities that it built, but I ended up moving to England, had an opportunity to live there for a year and taught design to students that were, there's a place called Marlborough College. And if you flew into London, took a train west 2 hours to Swindon, a cab down to Marlborough, you'd be right there. And I got the honor to be immersed into another environment, another culture, and teach design to students that, spoke British, not English. They're
Right.
American, and there are different things.
Right.
And the theories are different on how you teach and how you learn. And like America's I think our culture is a little bit more broad, a little bit more loose about how you can stumble across your journey. I think in British culture, they're very driven and tight with, we're going for these reasons. So it's a little bit more of a narrow focus, and there's a lot of theory based. And so that experience is almost what jump-started me to start to rethink things, because if you have to consider it, I know I'm young at that time, but I just went to school to learn all these hard skills, not to teach them.
Right.
And I had done a lot of workshops and done things in the past that have helped me develop skills for this, but it kind of really opened the doors for me in terms of an opportunity that said, okay, this is design. What does it mean to me? Because I have to teach it to you. Like going and being hired for something is one thing. Going to teach someone else how they can express their own things and learn these things, that kind of broke the doors. And then it really made me redefine who I was and what design meant to me. So long story short, ended up moving back to America, kind of settled in back to my hometown, live with the parents, the whole right. All right, now I'm going to go figure it out for real. Identity crisis is already starting to bake inside me, right? Like I remember two people, that specifically I ran into coffee shop. One was an old teacher. Another was a friend at a local gym. And those are the two people that started this conversation inside me. They were like, hey man, why don't you just start your own business? Like, I love what you're doing. You're always out there. You're always doing stuff. And that sat there, like planted seeds where I went, I don't want to start a business. That's not what I want to do. I never knew it for what it was. And I was pursuing jobs. I was hustling, right? Once I was back, I was freelancing. I was contract work. I ended up working for, a marketing consultancy firm, all these things that I was just learning and grabbing and absorbing. So about 2-ish years later is when, here's the real story. I met a friend of mine who sat me down and had a conversation about business and wrote basically the pros and cons of, working for someone else or being a freelancer versus owning your own business. And what does it look like when you put your energy into something? If you're doing it for someone else, they benefit on the extra efforts and things you do. And here's what the tax situation. So he wrote down, here's $100K. This is what it looks like on a piece of paper. If it goes from someone else, this is what it looks like in your pocket. Oh, this is how I don't own the car. The business owns the car. There was a conversation that really upstarted what an entrepreneur really meant. And ever since I filed the paperwork later that week, and that launched that journey. That's how that kind of thing started for me, was obviously immersed in a lot of experiences to build confidence,
Right.
to understand the opportunity, but also the skill sets, the thinking powers, all the different things that I needed. That was a lot of words, but
No, that was that was a short summary of a lot of stuff. So what do you think did hold you back from eventually starting your business for so long? Like, was it just needing those different experiences and kind of unlocking each of those gears that, the pins in the tumbler of the lock as you went? Or like, was there some way you could have shortcutted that earlier? Or did you need those experiences to kind of eventually make it click?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think over the past few years, that's a question I've been reflecting on ever since. I'm like, why didn't I just do it earlier? And I think ultimately anyone will probably say you needed those experiences to get to where you are, period. Right. So that's the short answer. The answer that really transformed me to be able to have the ability was, for me, that foundation of school taught you hard skills, and all the experiences I had taught you hard skills. And this is how you were going to get a job with them, not how you were going to make money with them. So there was a level that I was like, great, I have these things, and I'm going to take the craft of them and expertise as high as I can. But that's to get a job and work for someone else, because that's what they need on their team.
Right.
To own your own business, you have to make sacrifices with how the business needs to move and stay in action. So there was a handoff that I didn't mentally have from the environment in my journey so far. And I didn't know that. It took external people to kind of nourish that, because meaning early on in my business, I was fighting to figure out how to be profitable and how to be sustainable. And at that time, it's not that I wasn't doing the right things. It's that I was being a perfectionist with my craft, and it wasn't serving the people now I needed to transition. It's not about me anymore. It's about the people that I'm serving. That was the biggest mindset shift.
Yeah, I like that. One of the marketing people I worked with, that was one of the biggest things that, even after I'd run the business successfully for years, was to stop writing marketing material and pitching and selling from my perspective. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you can do. It is 100% what can you, when you think about it from a self-consumer perspective, it makes 100% sense. Like when you go to buy something, a car, you go to rent a place somewhere, like you don't care what that person's offering. You're just like, does it fit what I want? Does it give me what I need? And I think once, business owners start to kind of digest that and think from that perspective, instead of like, here's all the vomiting their pitch out constantly and starting to go, what is that person's problem and how can I let them know that I can solve that problem for them? I think it's a big shift.
And let me paint that picture so you can see it, because this is the thing that I didn't know. There's expertise and there's your client's pain points. And I was fully focused on my expertise, my craft, the hard skills. And I never once saw my client's pain points. In a business, if you focus fully on the pain points and there's no craft, you can't help anything. If you're only focused on yourself, you won't help your clients. You have to be right in the middle. And that's like the gold mine. If you find that, whether it's content, your marketing, whether it's the business and what you're serving, whatever the products and the offers are, everything has to be in that middle, because that's their language. They have to see that. So that's the crossover. And I'm like, I've got that in my head. I'm like, man, anything I create, everything I give, everything I share, it's always attention to both of those. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would add one more stop on that cycle, which is the product itself, right? Because one thing that I've seen and learned is that expertise that you have currently, pain points, and then the actual product you're delivering, all those things kind of change over time and they feed each other. Like your product should morph and change and iterate and get better as you learn the pain points, as you craft your expertise, as you do all those things. And it's just like a big, once you get that loop in motion where your product is constantly evolving and like you're not changing it every second or trying to please everybody, but you're continually kind of improving it to address those pain points that you learn about, your expertise gets better, you hit the pain points better, and your product gets better. And it's just this cool cycle that kind of just you get into. And I think that's kind of what you described there. That's awesome. If you had to start over again tomorrow, and this isn't a what would you have done differently question. This is more of a, if you had to start over tomorrow, what would be step one for you?
Well, I don't think I'm trying to think through in steps of, man, if I had the business already, what would I do? I think there's steps there of, I would start the process of exploding everything earlier.
Right.
But I think if I didn't have the idea, I would be wanting to fully immerse myself in different experiences. What do you think is, a better answer to talk about before you had the business, to find the business idea, or once you have it, how do you pursue it?
I would say that the question is typically geared towards, if you have the experience in something like you did with consulting and freelancing, and you've built this kind of resume up of things that you can deliver, what would be step one for you to start a business using that experience that you've accumulated over the years?
Yeah. All right. So what I would do is I would completely drop any perfectionist habits where you're like, this thing has to be perfect. Because early on, you have that tendency. You want it, this is your baby. Like, you had the idea, you've created this thing, so it has to be perfect. You have to launch it. It's got to be. But here's the thing. If you hold on to it too long, you don't have the opportunity to start. And it's not that it won't be perfect. It's that it wouldn't be effective. Like, it may be 100% perfect in your head, but it still may be missing the mark and you would never know. Right. So no matter what, it's a trial and error and it's a give and take. And so just as I launch my own things, internally, whether it's new updates or new features, you are going to put them out there as quick as you can to the best of your abilities, period. Yeah. And then you're going to evolve it as you go, because it's going to help, it's going to improve. So if you start to become too too perfect with it and hold it, it's not going to allow you to take action. And the thing that you need early on is to stay in motion and to take action. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't even need to announce that it's perfect,
right?
But you need to announce that it's going to solve a problem and to be effective. And you don't know how it's going to hit yet because it's all in your head. Yeah. An idea on paper is one thing, in your head is another, out in the real life is a whole nother thing. So in that incubation process early on, you have to value that motion is way more valuable than any type of perfection.
Yeah, no, quick to market. That's a great answer. One of my favorite kind of sayings about products and even productized services and just business in general is like, you can disprove an idea before it gets in your customer's hands, but you can't prove it until it's in your customer's hands, right? So you can say that's such a dumb idea, like it'll never work, and maybe it won't. But you can't say it's a great idea and it's going to sell 1 million, because if anybody could do that, they would just, everybody would be millionaires and we could just we would know that it would be perfect before we even get it out there. So like you said, it's a great point. Perfectionism has its place, but probably not when trying to get feedback on what you're delivering to your customers. I love that.
And it depends on your business though, too. I want to point out, like for me, I'm in consultancy world, right? If it's in a product business world, they're different businesses as well. But my business is driven on relationships.
Yeah.
And I don't have products that I'm selling. I have services, right? And it's a little bit different dynamic. So it depends on your business. But at the end of the day, you got to stay in motion.
Yeah.
That's going to kickstart any business for sure.
Yeah. I think it does carry over to the product world as well. And again, there's variations there, right? Like if you're building rockets that have people on them, it's probably better to be perfect as opposed to like,
depends on your business.
It depends on your business and who's running the company, I guess. But yeah. So, all right, let's switch gears a little bit. What are three, and one of my friends is big on longevity, and that kind of stuck with me, instead of just like health, like I have 5 kids, like being around for them for a long time is very important to me. So what are 3 kind of things, physical, mental, emotional, health-wise, that you do or you strive to do to kind of keep your longevity up?
So I've always been a competitive person into sports, athletics, all those things. So I find different outlets in that just in general as, my own outlet. So I play baseball. It's not softball. It's a baseball league in Delco. And that keeps me dialed in to the athletic behavior and things that I enjoy and the competitive piece. But internally, as a practice that I've learned for owning your own business, if at the end of the day, if you only have 40% of your energy that you can give, even if you're giving 100% of it to your clients and to the world and to your people, it's still 40%. And that is one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn. But at the end of the day, I have to take care of my own energy. So I know you're talking about health, but you call it what you want. But at the end of the day, it's your energy. It's that piece. So I've had to learn how to value that more. And it's been very hard over the years because I'm someone that is always others centered. So I will always prioritize others, and I've had to learn how to say no and all these things. But along that journey, some of the things that have helped have been internal meditations. And meditation, I mean in the loosest form. I mean in the practice that you have time to yourself devoted towards being at peace, being in the present moment. And that has taken forms in many ways for me. Like I've recently had a friend that's in the UK and he's inspired me to do an ice bucket or ice bath challenge. And so I was gearing up for the 30-day ice bath challenge, and I'm about halfway through. And that challenge has taken meditation on a whole new level. I've done the practices where, you're sitting quiet in your home, you're doing your thing. I haven't been able to find traction with them internally for myself. Ice bath has been great. But at the end of the day, what I've learned how that applies is in those pure blissful moments where you are the priority of your own worlds, they apply in those crisis moments in your world where you can go, I've practiced this situation. Everything is on fire except me. And I'm going to go it's like there's an internal confidence that will help develop from you prioritizing yourself. So that's the biggest practice that I'm slowly trying to find consistency in and find the rhythm. I think I'm trying to think through. Second thing is I'm going to circle it around personal development. I think entrepreneurism, and a friend of mine had said this, but entrepreneurism is just a business disguised as personal development, especially if you are not working for someone else necessarily, because any lesson, any mistake, any failure, anything, that helps grow your business. That helps grow you. Right. And it applies for kind of everyone. But in the situation of me, personal development, every time I increase and level that up, it helps me do my job better. And it helps solve, stronger pain points for my clients. And so a huge healthy habit on my end is continuing to build that database, to start to absorb information, to be open-minded to new perspectives and just knowledge. So that's reading, that's learning, that's podcasts, however you need to have that. Look, sometimes it's just conversations with yourself or your other people, right? Like, I think that's been a huge habit of mine. I'm going to say it's similar to you as well. Like, do you find that, obviously these conversations are helping, increase your understanding of certain industries, but personal development in your area is, I'm going to guess, pretty huge.
Yeah, I love that answer. And as you were saying that, it it's easy for me to stagnate because, like I said, I have a lot of kids, right? So it's you have
Yeah.
to balance like being a good dad versus like all the things you want to do. There's like some comic the other day is like, it's like if you see a dad, you know, who's ripped and like has 0% body fat, like he's probably not a good dad, right? Like it's there's, you know, obviously there's some caveats there. There is like some truth to where like you have to give some of that. I mean, I'm a huge hobbyist. I'm a huge, like, I love like, you know, programming, and I love building stuff, and I love doing Arduino stuff and astrophotography and being a pilot and all this other stuff that I love to do. But I think you're dead on. Like that fire to constantly improve yourself, and it can be in any
Yes.
form. Like you said, I mean, I learn a lot. To your point, I learn a lot from everybody I talk to on these calls. I mean, there's things from this call that I'm going to take away from it, and I'm going to go, wow, that's pretty cool that Jake does this, and you know, this is the way he handles his business like that. And also, I have monthly standing calls with, and I can't remember where I heard this. Somebody suggested, and it's a great idea. I have monthly standing calls with successful business owners that are just friends of mine, and we get on a call, and I have 2 today, like later this afternoon. Would you get on? We talk about what's going on with their business, like what's, you know, how they're doing with sales, like what's going on. And it's not like a tactical conversation. It's more just like, what are you doing? How are things going? And just like sparking those things. And I'll go away and start an entirely new effort or initiative at my company because of something that I talked with a smart business owner like you. So yeah, your
That's
point.
awesome.
I love conversation can be just as educational as a podcast or a YouTube video or whatever. You just got to, the thing, you're the sum of your 5, closest people in your life or whatever, right? Like that's like, if you keep really
That's true.
strong people in your life and really smart people in your life that are doing better or, as well or better than you are, then you're going to improve. Like there's no way that you're going to be worse off by having really successful people in your network that you talk to. So yes, I totally agree with that.
It's great. Absolutely.
What's number 3? You'd kind of sports.
I gotta give you a
activity.
third one.
Yeah, I want a third one because I like the first 2 was almost 2, like sports and kind of internal meditation stuff. But I would love to hear another one because I've liked all of them. So,
I'll give you one more. A incredible, and this is a very tangible habit that I have dialed in this year. I'm one that is you call it what you want, but high functioning, high performance, ADHD. All the things that are, my brain is like moving so fast. So running your own business is very hard because there's a lot of hats that you sometimes have to wear, and there's a lot of things going on all at the same time. And so focus has been one of the hardest things for me because I have to do all the things, but they all can't happen at the same time. So I've had to learn how to really dial in my time. So figuring out the right tools and the right format and the right rhythm and the right routines to be able to capture and understand what my time looks like. And like my time is very valuable, but I also need to know more than that. So this whole year and these past few years have been the practice of understanding, how does Jake do his time? How does he, because it's always been spontaneous. It never really captured it. So there's a tool that I use. What is it called? Toggle.
okay.
I don't know if you have Toggle or not.
No.
Toggle's a typical time tracker that a lot of people do. How long did I work on this client project? How long did I do this? Fine. But that's not really how, like I use that. But what I'm using for is to actually dial in where my energy is being focused.
Yeah.
So I'm very tight with my calendar. And even if we go, like, let's say I hop on a call, it's an hour, but it goes on a little longer, I might extend that in my calendar. So that way everything is fine tuned and everything is accurate to real time. Because my brain is too optimistic. So it's like, hey, I'll get that done in 30 minutes and it takes 4 hours, so I don't know until
How do you stay consistent with that? So how do you make sure that
by planning
5 days in, 10 days in, a month in, that you're not just kind of like falling off of it? Because I use Clockify sometimes to like break down my day. And I'm guessing it's because it feels like work, which is why, if anything feels like work now, I typically try to delegate it. But how do you stay up with it?
All right. This is where, now I've used it before and I never got traction. This is where I've gotten traction. It's not about doing the activity or tracking the thing. It's about having intention the next time you do the thing. So where you need is to find the pattern of repeat. So if you do this specific activity, and let's say I'm making a logo, and let's say I'm just doing a mood board, I'm trying to capture the visual direction. If that's the same process, every client I have when I'm doing branding, I need to gauge that. I need to find what that window is. So early on, I had to start to track that. And I'd write it, I'd circle it on my calendar or my thing. I'd say, this is the last 3 clients that I've done this thing. This is what we're aiming for this time. This is what we're aiming for next time. So that goal of intention for that repeat activity is how I'm changing it. If it's a new thing, it's very hard. Like obviously I can say, yeah, I'm going to do X activity, whatever that might be. And let's say it could be some kind of business development on the front end. But you don't know until you give it a very specific, tangible. Like you're either tracking time, I'm going to do this in an hour block, or I'm going to do 10 of these in period. And once you're finished, you're done. So I think intention is what's allowed me to track it, but also improve it. Because it's not just tracking. I don't want to track it. That's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, that's why I think I fall off, because it feels like it's like soul crushing for me, because I do love to know. I love to, I love to track how much time I spend with the family versus the podcast versus actual day-to-day business work versus personal, development stuff. Like I love those 4 categories, but I feel like I get mired down in the tracking of it.
Let me paint this for you though, because that's where I struggled. I use Google Calendar and I have Toggle, but I can integrate both of them. So my Google Calendar shows up in Toggle, and instead of putting in the activity that it already has in Google Calendar, I'm just copying in the entry. So that way I can adjust it if I have to. So it's very real time, and I can backlog it. I basically do it every day or every couple of days, and I can go back. If I'm doing it three weeks out, I'm going to forget what happened in week 1, and I won't really remember if I have to adjust it. But that's the physical activity that allows me to track it. Okay. And then at the end of the day, I can then go into Toggle, and when it's a repeat event, I can look at it and understand with intention, hey, how much personal time did I, spend with my kids, right? Or whatever it is. Right. And then you can increase it and say, I didn't spend enough. Because you don't have to be a perfectionist, but you want to improve where your energy wants to be balanced.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's helpful for me specifically. So sorry, everybody else, if that doesn't help you.
It's not for the youth.
This podcast is for me. It's a ruse. It's all for my personal development. I love it. But no, I think it's a great point, because, like, for example, my morning routine, my 5 for 5, my get up at 5, workout, stretch, meditate, journal, like those things I do every day. I kind of have that dialed in as far as time goes. So just knowing what the intention of that block is, I should be able to kind of have that knocked out every day. I don't need to do that every day. If I could plan that out for a month, and that should be the same thing. And like you said, if you need to adjust it, then adjust it. But also, I will say I have a lot of the firsts, right? Like I have a lot of things that are just like, I got to go do this, and I got to go do that, and I got to, hop on this call for this. And, their discovery calls may last 20 minutes or an hour. I have to run to the store. And those things, I think, eat into my ability to kind of plan it out going forward. So I struggle with that part of it. But I do think, like you said, the intentions of what the time should be spent on will be super helpful for me. So let's wrap with one question, a mystery question. So non-business related. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you couldn't fail, what would it be?
Look at that mystery question coming in strong.
It's a hot one, right? It's one of my favorites. I love the silence afterwards.
I
had to change the non-business related because everybody just goes, "Well, I'll just make my business bigger." But like, I'm thinking bucket list item, things that you're kind of, you're afraid you die at. Like, what is one thing that you would do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Yeah, so I think my brain goes in 2 ways. One, I'm gonna tell you one, because my brain goes, "Oh, I'm a competitive person. Let me just nail that thing," right? Like, there's that side, and then there's this side. Like, if I were to pursue not failing and resources, money weren't a thing, it'd probably be some kind of social venture, and it would dial into probably inspiring, empowering the next generation. I'm someone that's obviously I'm driven. I love what I do. I'm very connected to what it is my passion is. Not like they're distant. So one extra step in 10 years, 20 years out in the future, I want to take what I have and dial it into helping inspire the next generation, helping create workshops around the world, traveling, student, all the things, right? Because I think that will help jumpstart and value the creative leadership pieces. that if I couldn't fail, it's already going to happen, but that's my vision.
Right. Yeah.
If I were to do something where I couldn't fail, I would have to pursue something incredibly extreme. And I mean, it would have to be a Guinness Book of World Record. First off, like it would have to be breaking some kind of record.
Sure.
It wouldn't be, let me just jump out of a plane. Like I want to do that no matter what, but let me jump out of a plane without the parachute. Like I think we'd have to break the rules here and try to really figure it out. Now I wouldn't want to survive with like, broken limbs off, but
I mean, that would count as failure. I think if you hit the ground, it will count.
I'd want to go into space and breathe. Like take a selfie in space from the stratosphere and then hop back, fly down to Earth.
That's one of my favorites because it's probably mine as well. And I don't know if I can get this wide enough to show. Maybe there's my. So I do astrophotography. That's one of my. That's one of my prints. That's Andromeda, and I have a.
Oh, that's awesome.
Since I moved back to our house recently, my telescope has not been outside. It's on the other side of my desk. It's a giant computerized.
Oh, you're into
rig.
it.
So I'm. Oh yeah, bro. I'm like.
So you can capture me from the telescope.
I can take your selfie. I can take a picture of you taking your selfie. It'll
podcast in space.
Podcast in space. Wow, podcast in space. I was gonna do one in the flying, but in space is a different. Yeah, maybe that'll be the next iteration.
So
that'll be my thing. I'll do if I can't fail. All right. Well, you were awesome, Jake. If people want to find you, if they want to find your company, well, what's the best way to do that?
Touchpoint Design. You can follow us on socials. The one that probably everyone has most is Instagram. We are at touchpoint_design. And you can find me. I guess we can link it in the show notes too.
Yes.
My last name's a little funky. It's Kleinman Phillips.
That's fine.
But we'll link everything in the show notes. But follow Touchpoint, follow me on socials, and come on, grow your knowledge of information and start a conversation. That's what we're all here for.
Well, Jake, you were fantastic, my friend. I will put everything in the show notes. And other than that, man, stay cool. It's hot as hell out there today. I think I saw it's going to be a record high today. So,
oh, God.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. I think we're going to get lots of record highs from here on until, we figure this thing out.
Breaking records.
Not the records you want to break.
No, we don't want to break those records.
Those were not the records you want to break. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you, man. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you.
Thanks, Jay.
See you, Jay.
I appreciate it.